without further ado, please welcome Professor Lewin.
Thank you. When you shake an object, or you make it vibrate somehow, its response will depend very strongly on the frequency that you apply. Frequency, we express in physics in terms of hertz. 1 hertz is 1 oscillation per second. And so 100 hertz is 100 oscillations per second. You're going to hear the word hertz a few hundred times today. At certain frequencies, there is a very strong response. And those are called resonances, and that's what the talk today is all about. I will start with a string. We have a string under tension, and it's fixed here, and I'm going to shake it here just a teeny weeny little bit. And I choose the frequency. I start with a very low frequency. The string will ignore me. But then all of a sudden, when I hit its lowest possible resonance frequency, it goes bananas. And you will see that. And what will happen is, it will go up, and then it will go down, and it will go up, and it will go down. And this is what we call the first harmonic, F1. It's the lowest possible frequency for which the string goes into resonance. Now I shake a little faster, and again, the string will ignore me. Won't do very much. It's fixed here. I oscillate it here a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the string will again be extremely happy, and something very strange happens. This part of the string will go up. This part never moves, and this will go down. And it goes up and down like this. And this point that doesn't move is called a node. This then is the second harmonic, is F2. And F2 has exactly twice the frequency as the first harmonic. The first harmonic is also often called the fundamental. And I may use either one of them. When I say fundamental, I mean first harmonic. When I say first harmonic, I mean fundamental. It's one and the same thing. I start shaking it a little faster. It ignores me. And by now you should all become experts. You should be able to predict what happens. All of a sudden, the string is again very happy. There's going to be a node here and a node here. And now this part goes up. This part is down. And this part goes up. And here is the end. And this is the third harmonic, F3, and the frequency of the third harmonic is 3 times the frequency of the first harmonic. I'd like to demonstrate that to you. I have a string here. It's not really a violin string, but it is a string. And I should be able to generate the first, second, and third harmonic for you, maybe even higher harmonics. But I need assistance from someone who is capable of holding one end and not letting go. You look like the right person. What is your name?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, stand here. Never move that hand, because you are the end that never moves. I'm going to move.
Okay.
Okay? Don't let go either. I have to put some tension on this string. Go a little bit this way because I'm afraid for you. So this is fine. So I go with a very low frequency. You see how low I go? Nothing. You see nothing, right? I predicted that. Now go a little faster. Hey, 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 first harmonic. You see it very clearly. That's a resonance. It's the lowest resonance possible. I go a little faster. Is this the second or is this the third already? Is this the second? You see one point stand in the middle? Okay, so you see one note in the middle. It's quite happy. It's a resonance. Notice how little I have to move my hand, and I get a huge response. Let me now see whether I can get the third one. Is this the third? It's not really in resonance yet. Need a little bit more tension on it. What is this? Is this the third? The fourth. Lucky you. Okay, now I'm going to try to get the highest possible frequency. And then you tell me what that frequency was, which harmonic. If you see 2 notes in the middle, you know it's the third. If you see 4 notes in the middle, you know it's the fifth. Okay, so you count the notes in the middle. I'm going as far as I possibly can in getting a resonance frequency. I got one, count, count, count. Okay, how many did you see? 6. I counted at least 13. Thank you very much. We have here something quite similar. It is a rubber hose, and we have some tension on it. And the tension is set in such a way that when we drive it with a driver which is on the other end, we drive it up exactly the same way that I did here. When we drive it at the frequency which is about 47 hertz, it should go almost immediately into its third harmonic. Let's see whether it does that. Yes, it's very clear, it's in its third harmonic. Now, you cannot follow anymore the motion, it goes too fast. So we're going to strobe it now with a strobe light, which has about the same frequency, but slightly off. That means you're going to see the motion in slow motion. You're going to see it move very slowly. So let's first turn on the strobe light. And then, if Ura will make it dark, then you will see. You see, if Bill manages to get the frequency exactly the same as the driving, then it will even stand still. But that's not so interesting. I would really like you to see it move. So keep in mind, it goes up and down 48 times per second, but the strobe light makes it stand still. What is fun at times, but it's very hard for the television camera to do this in red light. So now you see the same in red light. It's a little bit more romantic. Okay, I think that's great, Bill. Thank you. We can have the lights back. The resonance frequency in strings depends on three factors. It depends on the tension, capital T, has nothing to do with time, it's the tension. It depends on the length of the string, and it depends on the mass of the string. If you want to think of this as weight, that's fine too, but we think of it in general in terms of mass. If you increase the tension, the fundamental frequency goes up. If you make the length shorter, the fundamental frequency goes up. If you make the mass lower, the fundamental frequency goes up. So you have a lot to play with when you design instruments. When Emma, whom you have seen making a rainbow with me, when it was freezing cold, when she was crying, when Emma was 4 years old, she made me a musical instrument which I have saved. This is a string, I can't change the length. The mass of the string is fixed, I can't change that. She mounted it on a bucket in which people in Kentucky put fried chicken. And when I pluck it, you can hear the difference in the fundamental. When I make the tension higher, you really hear a higher tone. It's a little hard, but you can probably hear that. I will change the tension, that's all I can change. And I will pluck it. So you see the effect, there's only one thing I could change here, and that was the tension. A violin has 4 strings. They all 4 have a different mass, they all 4 have a different tension, but they have about the same length. You tune a violin by changing the tension. That's what you can play with. You play a violin by changing the length of the strings. You put your finger on the strings and you move your finger, thereby you can make the length longer or shorter. That's the way that you play the violin. A standard grand piano has 230 strings, yet it has only 88 keys, so most of the keys have more than 1 string. Many actually have 3 strings. And of course, they have different lengths, they have different tension, and they have different mass. If you take a concert grand piano, then the sum of the tension of all the strings together is 30 tons. You can imagine how strong it has to be built to have 30-ton tension. A piano reaches all the way from 27 hertz to about 4200 hertz, which is 7 octaves. Your hearing, if you're young, some of you are, and if your ears are healthy, your hearing goes from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. When you get older, you lose high frequency. I cannot hear above 5,000 frequency anymore. But that's the range. And so the piano goes from 27 to 4200 hertz, which is 7 octaves, which is very, very well tuned to your hearing in general. The remarkable thing is, when you have a bow and you strike a string of a violin with a bow, the string singles out its resonance frequencies. It's quite remarkable. The same thing happens when you pluck it. When I plucked Emma's string, it singled out the resonance frequencies. You can also hit it with a hammer. That's what happens in the piano. There's a hammer that goes down, and it singles out the resonance frequencies. So you don't have to excite it, as we did here, exactly at the right frequency. That is not necessary. Wind instruments have an air column inside And it is that air column that goes into resonance. Not the instrument itself, but it's inside the air that starts to go into resonance. And when you blow air in various different ways, these resonances are being excited. Many wind instruments are open on both sides. Then the frequency of the nth harmonic equals n times v divided by 2L. N can be 1, that is the first harmonic, 2 is the second harmonic, 3 is the third harmonic, etc. V is the speed of sound of the gas inside the instrument, which is obviously air. So V is always 340, very close to 340 meters per second. Depends a little bit on the temperature in the room. And L is the length in meters. So it's a very easy calculation. If an instrument is very long, you can see that the fundamental is low. If an instrument is very short, like a flute, you expect a fundamental which has a very high frequency. It's exactly supported by this equation. If the fundamental, for instance, F1 were 100 Hertz, if that were the case, then F2 would be 200 Hertz, and F3 would be 300 Hertz, and so on. So it's a very easy equation. If the instrument is open at one side and closed at the other, the equation is somewhat different. But in addition, it depends on the bore. Whether the bore of the instrument is conical or cylindrical makes a difference. And that's why an instrument which is closed and open, like a clarinet, closed on one side, is harder to calculate the fundamental and the higher harmonics. But with open instruments, it's very easy. For those of you who have already bought my book, For the Love of Physics, I discuss this in more detail than what I do here. You can read about musical instruments there. And for those of you who haven't read my book yet, it's about time that you buy it. So let us use the equation so that you get used to it. Let's take L equals 1 meter. So that would be, for instance, an organ pipe, which is open on both sides. L is 1 meter. Then the equation says, okay, F1 equals 1 times 340 divided by 2 is 170 Hertz. And of course, F2 is then 340 Hertz, and so on. And you can do all the rest. So it's very easy, once you know the dimension, to predict the fundamental and all the higher harmonics. A tuba, which is open on both sides, has a length of 5.4 meters, and therefore has a fundamental of 30 Hertz. There are 2 organ pipes in the world, which are 19.5 meters long, open on both sides, 6 stories. And they have a fundamental of 8.7 Hertz, which no one can hear, because our hearing only starts at 20 Hertz. Why they were built, I have no idea. So how now do you play a woodwind instrument? So here you see the basic idea of a flute. If I close these 2 holes, then the flute is this long. If it's that long, it has a certain fundamental. If I take one finger off, then it becomes shorter. So the fundamental will go up. If I take this hand off, then the length is even shorter. So I'll make you listen to those 3 fundamentals. First, the lowest one. Now the second one. and the third one. So this is not the first, second, and third harmonic. Don't confuse that. These are three different fundamentals because I changed the length of the instrument. And that's the way you play the flute. And people who know how to play it, they make beautiful songs. I said people... Here's another example of where you can see that the length of an instrument is important. This is the physics idea of a trombone. And so the air is inside here. And when I'm here, then the air column is this long, so you get this fundamental. But when I make it shorter, you get this fundamental, clearly higher. And if you know how to play it, then you can make music. I'll make a modest attempt. I'm impressed that you even recognized the song. This is a musical instrument which is open on both sides. It is 91 centimeters long. Each one of you, using this equation, should be able to calculate that the first harmonic, the fundamental, is 187 hertz. You can do that on your own, and the second one is 373 hertz, and so on. If I swirl this around very slowly, I will be able to get the second harmonic. I have never succeeded in getting the first harmonic. The first harmonic would be 187. So the very first one that you hear is really the second harmonic, which is 373 hertz. If then I rotate faster, you will hear the third harmonic. I may even be able to get the fourth, and on a lucky day like today with so many people, I might get the fifth. But I can't promise that. This is 373 hertz. This is the second harmonic. Third harmonic. Fourth harmonic. Fifth. Got it. Any string instrument needs a sounding board. I have here a 440 hertz tuning fork. It's the middle A of the piano. If I bang on it, you cannot hear it, and I cannot hear it. Because sound is a pressure wave. Sound is produced by pulling and pushing on air. And this is a very small area. And imagine the string of a violin has no area at all. So there's almost no displacement of the air. So you can't hear it. The moment that you put it on a surface, you can hear it. And the reason is the following. This tabletop is now also going to vibrate at 440 hertz. Now imagine how much air is going to be displaced by this larger surface. That is the function of a sounding board. When you look at the violin, Pauline, hold your violin up, that whole instrument is the sounding board. Open up a piano, and you will see sounding boards in every string instrument. By the way, this was Emma's sounding board. I have here a music box, which I bought many years ago, a little drum that rotates, and then you have prongs. And when I rotate it, you cannot hear it, and I cannot hear it. I hear nothing. But now I give it a sounding board. So you see how important a sounding board is. Musical instruments can simultaneously produce more than one resonance frequency. In that sense, a tuning fork is very boring. They are important, they play a role, but if I excite the 440 Hertz tuning fork, you only hear 440 Hertz. You hear no overtones. Overtones is another word for harmonics, by the way. If I excite the 250 Hertz, you only hear 250 Hertz. But when you play an instrument, the instrument can simultaneously resonate in more than one resonance frequency. And that is the beautiful thing about the difference of the various musical instruments. It's the fingerprint of each instrument, how many harmonics it produces when you play a certain note. It's very characteristic for each instrument, and that's the way that we recognize these instruments. And that's what I want to demonstrate to you. We have here a microphone, and we have here an oscilloscope, and we're going to show you the oscilloscope up there. I will show you then what the 440 Hertz tuning fork looks like, and then after I have done that, I will ask 5 musicians to come here and each on a different instrument play the 440 Hertz that I will first show you with my tuning fork. And you will see then that these instruments have higher harmonics at the same time of the 440. The more I speak, the worse it is for you because it's picking up my voice. So I will shut up for a moment. Try to photograph this. This is 440 Hertz, and when these people are going to play, we will not change the frequency scale. So if they're closer together, the mountains, it means the frequency is higher. When they're farther away from each other, it means the frequency is lower. We will not change that. If I showed you 4,000 Hertz, 4,400 Hertz, they would be 10 times closer than that they are saying now. I want you once more to see the 440. And try to remember that. Musicians, get ready. Come on, yeah, get ready means come this way. Yeah, you were coming here. Come on here, yeah. Look at the audience, isn't that nice? Come in. This is Shoei. He's going to play the clarinet. Pauline, who's going to play the violin. Devin, who's going to play electric guitar. Irene, who's going to play the saxophone. And then we have Molly, who is going to play the bassoon. This instrument is 2.5 meters in size. The L is 2.5 meters because you have to add this with that. And if you put that in that equation, then you will see that the fundamental in her instrument is 60 Hertz. First, Shoei is going to play a 440, and then each of them can play up to 30 seconds, anything they want to. Shoei, the show is yours. You see the overtones? You see the harmonics? Yeah, do it once more, the 440. Very different from a tuning fork. Now play whatever you want, son. Boy. Pauline is my daughter. I didn't ask her to play. She volunteered. She said, "Dad, don't you remember 40 years ago when I was 11, that was the first time you gave a lecture at MIT on musical instrument. Don't you remember? I played the violin for you." So it was nice that she volunteered. It also gives me an opportunity to see how much progress she made in 40 years. Pauline, 440. You sure that that was 440?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was fun.
Do it again. The overtones are so strong that you hardly recognize the 440. That's the quality, that's the signature, the fingerprint of a violin. Go ahead, play what you want to play. Terrific. You have improved. All right, so now we get Devin with the electronic guitar. He is going to try to make you see 440. And now comes the embarrassment. We knew this in advance. He can't. This electronic guitar is unable somehow to make a 440. What you see is actually, try it again. Oh, now it begins to look a little bit like the violin. Oh, now this is way lower frequency that you had. So in your case, I would say you better play something. Excellent. Irene, saxophone, maybe you have to go a little closer. I don't know how loud your saxophone is. Go ahead. Stay a little bit further away. No, you do very well, but I prefer not to change the oscilloscope, yeah? You see 4 mountains? That was the 440. You see the overtone superimposed? Now the floor is yours. did very well. You did very well. So now, last but not least, we get Molly with the bassoon, an instrument that is 2.5 meters long. Your frequency is a little higher than 440. I see more than 4 mountains. Go ahead. Oh, no, it's not your fault. Oh, yeah. Again, the overtones are so strong that they dominate. That's the signature of this instrument. That's the quality of that instrument. Go ahead, play your piece. I hope you noticed one thing. This instrument is 2.5 meters long. That instrument doesn't like to make a 440 hertz tone. It likes to go low frequency. That's what it was designed. Did you hear her piece? Did you see that these were all very low frequencies? That's why it's so big. Now these people have a very special treat for you, and also for me. In 45 years, no one has ever suggested that they will play a piece together. But I think it was Molly, wasn't it, who suggested it? Whoever. In any case, they're going to piece together now. The floor is yours. We're listening. Fabulous! Fabulous! Thank you. All objects have resonance frequencies. When you drive your car, and if it's an old car, you hear a rattle. The frequency is determined by spinning of your wheels. It's a nuisance. You slow down a little or you speed up a little, and the resonance stops. But since it's an old car, there's something else that goes into resonance, and that starts to rattle. We all know that. Your body, as a whole, has a resonance frequency. Your arms have resonance frequencies. Your legs have resonance frequencies. When you go to a hospital and you have an NMR, that means nuclear magnetic resonance. Very important. Falling in love is an emotional resonance. Someone says something that hits a sensitive nerve, and you go bananas. That's a resonance. It's an emotional resonance. I have here a wine glass. It has many, many resonances. I will make you listen to one that I can easily excite. I have to first get the chalk off my hands, because with the chalk on it won't work. And I'm going to rub the rim. It's not the air column inside that goes into resonance, as you may have expected, because you think it's a wind instrument. That's not the case. In this case, it is the glass itself which is going to do this. And I will show you later today in slow motion that the glass is doing this. That is the resonance of this glass, the lowest resonance frequency. You can hear it. Do you hear it? It's very close to 440, actually. So you can't see it, but the glass is going 400 times per second doing this. And that's the sound you heard. We have a special tube open on both sides. It's 1.5 meters long. So its fundamental is 113 hertz. It's very easy for you to calculate. Inside that pipe is a copper grid. Thank you, Bill. I know how heavy this is. Thank you. And I can feel the copper grid when I put my hand inside. There it is. It's about here. That's all there is. Nothing else. Open on both sides. I'm going to heat that copper grid. And then, when I stop heating it, when the grid starts cooling, it goes into resonance. God knows why, but it does. Actually, there is an article written already in the 19th century about why it does this. It's called the Reiki tube. We have here a rectangular plate, about yay big. It's held at the center. The rest of the plate is free to move. And we can mechanically oscillate the center. Now, a string is a one-dimensional object, so a string gets nodes, points that stand still. If you bring a plate in resonance, it is not a point, but you're going to get nodal lines. So there are lines over the surface which do not move. And we can make you see those lines. We're going to put powder on there. And then we will bring that plate into resonance. We will search for resonances. I will go over a whole frequency range. And where the plate is moving violently, it throws the powder off and it accumulates at the nodal lines. That's where it remains. And that's how you will be able to see it. So, now I have to make sure that okay. Oh, I already started as a resonant. Wasn't even my plan. Look, this is one resonance. I'll go, so these are the nodal lines. I go to higher frequency. That's a nice one. Hey. You can imagine how difficult it must be for engineers to calculate these resonance frequencies. Physicists in general don't do this. And so you understand, of course, that objects that are not a square but a circle, we also have a circular one, have different resonance frequencies, different nodal lines. We also have a triangular one. It is the square one, actually, that is the nicest and that gives the most interesting patterns. Resonance can become so strong and so violent that it becomes destructive. And the most famous example of that was the collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in 1940 near Seattle. The wind was not even so strong, 40 miles per hour, but the bridge, which apparently was not properly built, went into resonance. You will see the resonance, and it destroys the bridge. And we want to show you that classic movie. Some of you may have seen it already in high school, but it is amazing how wind can do that. It's just like with the musical instruments. The bridge itself took out of the wind the resonance frequencies. Yeah, you can start it, Bill.
On the 1st of July, 1940, a delegation of citizens met in Washington State. The weather was beautiful, the occasion historic, and the speech-making and fanfare altogether appropriate. This was the grand opening of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. From the beginning, the bridge, which spanned Puget Sound between Seattle and Tacoma, was traveled in style, as well it should have been. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge was one of the longer suspension bridges on Earth. And if somebody hadn't overlooked something, it probably would have remained one of the longer suspension bridges on Earth. The problem wasn't that right from the beginning, a lot of people didn't pay a lot of attention to details. They did. But somewhere along the line, and this was obvious in the end, it looks as if someone forgot the significance of resonance. Among other things, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was the most spectacular Aeolian harp in history. Unfortunately, its first performance was destined to run only about 4 months. In the meantime, she was a beautiful bridge. Beautiful, but a little strange. Even before construction was completed, people observed its peculiar behavior. That was because, even in a light breeze, ripples ran along the bridge. After a while, One of the local humorists called her Galloping Gertie. And for fairly obvious reasons, the name stuck, at least until the 7th of November, 1940. Then as now, Seattle and Tacoma were sports-minded cities. For 4 months, a regional sport was to drive across the bridge on a windy day. While some claimed it was like riding a roller coaster, others found it a little disconcerting to see the car in front disappear. How popular this bridge sport was, or to what extent it might have spread across the country, is anybody's guess. On November 7th, 1940, the winds were relatively moderate, about 40 miles per hour. A new mode appeared. Rather than ripple, the bridge began to twist. A wind of 40 miles per hour is not too strong, but it was strong enough to start the bridge twisting violently. And at 11 a.m., it fell. Investigators were mystified.
Can I have the lights, please? You may have heard that there are people who can sing one particular tone so loud that it breaks a wine glass. I think it's a myth, although you can find a video on the web, but that means nothing, of course. But it is intriguing, the thought, that if you generate exactly the frequency that I made you listen to earlier when I was rubbing, and if you add enough volume to it, that the motion, that the motion of the glass becomes so strong, and I will show it to you shortly, that it breaks. Professor Michael Feld, many years ago, with a graduate student, decided to build here at MIT an instrument that in principle might be able to break a wine glass if you put in enough volume. We're going to show you the image of the wine glass there. We're going to strobe it with a frequency which is slightly different from the resonant frequency of the glass itself. So what you will see then is the glass move in slow motion. Now we have to be exactly at resonance, and we have to produce an immense amount of sound. I warn people who are close. I really seriously warn you. You may damage your ears, so be careful. But I will tell you when I turn up the sound and make it nearly unbearable. If we're not exactly at resonance, it won't break. So I can't tell you how long it will take, but we'll see. It depends also on the strength of the glass. So let me first turn on the speaker, the sound. Very low level. We think this is already very close to the frequency of the glass. I think it's heating up. But we should see it start moving. You want more sound?
Yes.
Not going to break yet. You begin to see the slow motion of the glass. So this is the way that we try to get it right on resonance. What do you think? We right on it? Okay, I warn you now, we're going to try to break it. I can't promise you that it will break. We'll try. Right. My voice, in a way, is produced as if it were a wind instrument. I have a cavity here. That cavity is resonating, being driven by my vocal cords. And that generates my voice the way you recognize it, the way you know it. You say, yeah, it's Walter Lewin, no question about it. This is 340 meters per second, because I have air in this column. However, if I had helium inside me, then the speed of sound inside me would be 3 times higher than air. And therefore, all my resonance frequencies will go up by a factor of 3. You won't recognize my voice. May I try it? Here we have the helium. I hope you realize helium has no oxygen in it. I once came very close to fainting, really.
I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.
Okay. Thank you very much. You have no idea how I love to give lectures like this. And I've done it for 45 years, and I hope I can still do it for a good many years. Thank you.